This interview is for information only and should not be considered as investment advice or a recommendation to buy shares in the company featured. Welcome to this Stockbox interview.
Joining us today is Alex Walker, the CEO of East Star Resources, following drilling results from their Vakuba copper project in Kazakhstan. And the headline I noticed there was open pit potential confirmed, Alex. So, I mean, this is obviously a good result, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. We're very happy. This is obviously a culmination of quite a lot of work from our team from nearly over a year ago, starting to collect and digitize data on the Vakuba deposit to commencing drilling in August of this year. And now I think we've really started to certainly demonstrate to ourselves and hopefully to the market that this is a deposit of real potential. Really with the capacity to develop an open pit. We try to remember, of course, it's a very infrastructure-rich region, and so we've got several mills that are underfed within comfortably trucking distance of this deposit. So now that we've demonstrated that there are consistent lenses of very high-grade copper comfortably within open pit, mining sort of shells from surface, it's going to be a very exciting 2024 indeed.
And how can you say then with sort of confidence that you've got this open pit potential? Because I remember when we've been speaking before that the purpose of this drilling campaign was to effectively validate, if you like, all that historical data there. And you say in the RNS that the current findings do match well with the high grade zones that were identified over historical drilling. So have you drawn this conclusion about open pit potential based off of some of the previous historic data there, and the fact that things are matching up gives you confidence to say that?
That's exactly right. I mean, generally, even just from an exploration perspective, without all of 42,000 meters of historic drilling, which we digitized to come up with the exploration model, when you've got 24 meters in one drill hole of high grade copper from surface over three lenses, starting at under 20 meters, you know that you've got a very, very good chance of having an open pit. That's sort of consistently been tracked now across a good couple of 100 meters across one profile of the drilling. But importantly, it's within the pit shell. So with the historical data that was sent to AMC, which are independent consultants out of Perth, they modelled to give us our exploration target, and that was released to the market. That was 19 to 23 million tonnes at 1.4 to 1.9% copper equivalent, which for anyone doing the numbers is over 300,000 tonnes of contained copper. When they were doing that modelling, I think they got a bit excited with some of the results and they started to do an optimised pit shell, which wasn't in the brief, but they did nonetheless. Okay. And so that's why we've got this 5 to 6 million tonnes within a potential open pit at 0.38% copper equivalent. It's really important actually that the market sort of looks at those numbers, because these are quite well interrogated. 0.38% is not 0.1 or 0% cutoff. It's a very, very reasonable, very conservative cutoff grade. And we've also been very conservative with recoveries for our copper equivalent grades. So 0.7% for zinc, 0.7% for lead, and 50% in fact for silver. And so we think we've been very, very incredibly fair with putting out these results. They are within the within the pit shells that were modelled by AMC. And so, we will look to further demonstrate that with drilling and economic studies throughout the course of next year.
Okay. And in terms of the grade there, so you're saying 0.38%. For a copper deposit, do you want more volume over grade at that kind of grade? What are we talking? Is it a good grade at 0.38?
So 0.38% is the cutoff grade that we use to model the resource. It's incredibly conservative. There's a lot of mines that are 0.3% copper mines. They're incredibly big, so they have economies of scale, but nonetheless, the grade, the run of mine grade of those mines is lower than our cutoff grade.
Okay.
So the average of the deposit will, we still expect to be in excess of 1%. I would, looking at these results. So it's just important, very important to make that distinction. And so, very much would expect this to be in the realms of an open pit. And, just for those, again, doing the numbers, even if you are trucking, a 1% copper, just about anywhere in the world, 1% copper, you could comfortably truck 50 kilometers to a mill for a profitable operation, which is our closest mill to the Verkhoba deposit. In Kazakhstan, those economics are going to be even better because, of course, your labor costs, your fuel costs are considerably lower than it is, and I've said consistently in the past, Kazakhstan's probably the cheapest place in the world to dig a hole, and here we have a hole to dig, hopefully. So, it's very, very positive, very positive.
Okay. And I noticed you mentioned before there about 3 lenses, and you talk in the RNS there, the discovery of additional ore lenses and lower grade halos suggests an increase in total ore tons in future resource models. So I wonder if you could just explain perhaps a little bit about lenses and halos and what they are.
Yeah, certainly. So what you're talking about is basically mineralization zones. So, the way that these sorts of deposits formulate is a sedimentary package comes out, or a sedimentary layer comes out of a volcanic structure and finds itself embedded on the seafloor, 360 million odd years ago. And so during that time, there's other events or there's other layers that might intersperse themselves. So what you're looking for is a thickness of those mineralized zones and a grade of those mineralized zones, and you get copper. In our deposit, in this instance, principally copper and zinc. And so what that does is that forms a lens, and they might pinch out and or swell at other points. But ultimately, that's what we're talking about when we're referring to lenses. So it might be one mineralized layer and then another zone of non-mineralized material, and then another zone of mineralization. So if we use hole 1 as an example, we've got just under 3 meters at nearly 2.1% copper from 19 meters. And then we have a gap of 5 or 6 meters, and then we've got 15 meters at 1.6% copper equivalent from 27, and then another gap, and then we've got 6.2 meters at 1.1% copper equivalent. But often those gaps, in fact, significantly, those gaps are actually mineralized envelopes as well. They just have a grade lower than 0.38%. And so what that means is that when you're mining, you often have what we term dilution, and that's given a 0 grade, but actually our dilution probably won't have a zero grade. It will carry some copper. Sure. So all of these things help with the economics and certainly help when you're doing your mine planning.
Sure. And of course, it's predominantly copper, isn't it? But you've talked there in the RNS about some intersections containing up to 6.6% zinc, and also additional potential for gold, pending some of the assay results. So, I mean, of course, copper's the focus, but is there some merit to be had here for the other credits as well? Some could really add a bonus to the project.
Yeah, look, absolutely. And in the instance where zinc's been meaningful, we've incorporated as a copper equivalent grade. So look, roughly probably 85% of the economics of the results that we've put out is driven by copper. And then I'd suggest that the vast majority of the rest is driven by zinc. And again, that's about zonation. So the surface results, for example, are principally copper, and the ones that are a bit deeper are sort of copper and zinc. So they have a combined layer. And again, it's worth reiterating that we've been incredibly conservative with our both our cutoff grade of 0.38% with the open pit, but also with the recoveries. So we're not giving 100% recoveries when we're putting out these results. We're giving 70% recoveries for the zinc, for the lead, 50% for the silver, and we'll apply 50% for the gold when those results come in as well to come up with that combined grade. So these are grades that we genuinely think in a mining scenario we would be mining and recovering on an equivalent basis. So yeah, absolutely, we're expecting zinc credits. Absolutely, we're expecting silver and gold credits, but the vast majority of the economics is carried by copper.
Sure. Okay. Well, you mentioned earlier, now you have a hole to dig. So, I mean, what comes next? I think you're going to be getting an updated resource model early 24. Is that the next step? When would you realistically be able to start digging?
Right. Well, So first things first is the updated resource model to plan the feasibility work. So, what we'll need to do is if we can't convert the open pit to a JORC, well, even if we can convert the open pit to a JORC on this drilling, we'll still need to be drilling next year because we'll obviously need to, to upgrade that resource and build our confidence on the economic model and the mine plan. So the plan next year would be to do the drilling that's required to convert most of the open pit to a JORC resource. That would either be inferred or indicated, subject to the results and subject to the planning that comes from this. If it's inferred, we'll be doing a scoping study on that as fast as possible. And if it's indicated, then we'll be able to do a preliminary economic assessment. And it's about that time that once you can deliver and confirm the economics of this project, that you can start doing things like applying for your mining licenses and formulating or finalizing, I should say, details of offtake agreements and things like that, how you actually intend on processing. So that will very much be 2024, a huge focus for us in 2024.
Well, it's good that you've got to this point at the end of 23. I don't know if you want to sum up 23 because clearly 24 looks like, as you said earlier, it's looking to be a very good year for the company, where you're hopefully going to get down to that, convert it to a JORC resource on the open pit and start going down the study route. So you're moving down very much that sort of exploratory down into development. If you just sum up the year and talk about 24, what is it you're excited about?
Within 2 years of listing as well, you couldn't really ask for more as an expert, a company that's listed as an explorer, within 2 years of listing be staring down the barrel of a pre-feasibility study. And so that's, that is our focus. So it's been a fantastic year. Certainly operationally, it's been an absolutely fantastic year for East Star. Markets have been tough and, in my view, certainly unjustifiably tough. The other thing we're staring down the barrel of is potentially the world's, longest and most significant copper bull market. The deficit that everyone has been predicting from sort of 2027, certainly in our view, and starting to formulate with other views, is that might come a lot earlier with mine closures in Peru and it strikes in Chile and obviously Cobre Panama with First Quantum taking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of tons out of the world copper market. So that deficit is likely to come a lot sooner, and there will be a big copper bull market, and we're perfectly well placed to take advantage of that. So if the deficit does come in 2024 or 2025 or 2026, well, hopefully it's well and truly kicked in by the time we are breaking ground and we are able to reap the benefits of that. We've used very conservative copper prices for our $242 million pre-capex MPV on the open pit. So I'd like to see what those numbers are. Certainly if copper does go to $12 or $13 or $15,000.
Yeah. Well, I presume you're going to be moving fairly rapidly then as we enter 2024 to advance the project. I also note from the RNS that the team is potentially looking at other targets as well for future drilling. Is that to aid with the studies, or is that to extend the resource potential?
Yeah, it's to extend the resource potential. I mean, we didn't get specifically into the Rudny Altai belt for Vacuba. Vacuba was a very fortunate addition to the portfolio once we started to get down and dirty in the data and find out what we and figure out what we had there. But the principal reason we're in Rudny Altai is because there's 50 million ton mines at 4-5% copper equivalent that are along the belt with big gaps of no discoveries. We've spoken with the world's leading VMS geologists, people like Bruce Gamel, who've written reports and said, absolutely this is underexplored, and on East Star's tenements and across the belt, there is more opportunity to find these significant VMS projects. So, it feels like in the background, quite clearly it's been a lot of work for us this year, continuing to digitize historical data and do the on the ground work. So numerous geological surveys. We've done, small geophysics. This is on top of the heliborne geophysics that we did in 2022 to refine these targets and make them drill ready. So there's a little bit more work. We've alluded to Talovskoy as one of those targets. We put some really high grade rock chip results out to the market a couple of weeks ago. So that's something that's a little bit more advanced and superficial. But there's a lot of other targets that are sitting below cover that we are de-risking as much as possible before we start to sink the drill bit. And so we expect those to be drill ready, throughout the course of next year as well. So I'm considering these our medium and longer term targets. Our shorter term one, of course, is Vukuba. Next cab off the rank is probably Talovskoy, and then we've got medium term targets that I expect to be drill ready within next drill season. Then there's longer term targets, and that's a really big picture, and that's finding numerous deposits similar to Artemyevsky, similar to the operating mine that's 50 million tonnes at about 5% copper equivalent.
Okay. And just a final thought, Alex, is there anything left to come for the rest of the year? You're expecting some of those perhaps gold assay results to come through before Christmas?
Yeah, that's right. We are hoping that they come through. We'll need to assess them. It's important to note that I'm not expecting gold to be some huge game changer to these grades. We certainly don't need it to be a huge game changer. I'm just expecting it to be an additional credit, just like silver would be an additional credit. So it might take your deposit from 1.5% to 1.6 or 1.7%. But when it's all profit because your marginal cost of production is going to be so low, then it's all very, very welcome, very, very welcome addition. So we are expecting the gold results through. So we'll assess those and announce those when the time comes. And then again, we'll be progressing with the geological studies to see if we can convert this, but also to upgrade the resource model.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I look forward to catching up again in the new year. Sounds like it could be an exciting year for the company. But for now, thank you very much for your time. Alex Walker, CEO of East Star Resources.
Thanks, Mark. All the best.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.